Okay, today we're talking about the princess. Welcome to the 8th video in the Discover Your Elemental Blueprint series. I'm Jack Maloney, the Energy Alchemist, and today we're talking about Yin Metal. So in the last video we discussed Yang Metal, which is the Emperor energy, and it's essentially the divine masculine energy, and it's the most rigid of all of the elements. And in presentation, the Yang Metal to Yin Metal is wildly different in the way that they react in relationship, how they come across, how their energy is when you meet them. So whereas Yang Metal is like a Chinese broadsword, Yin Metal, my teacher refers to them as like a soda can. So they're aluminum, which is still metal, and they have the ability to withstand some pressure, like the soda in the can, but under enough pressure they will collapse. And when they do collapse, if they break open, they will cut you to the bone. So Yin Metal has this interesting quality about them that they're super sensitive, and when they're in a situation under pressure, under lots of stress, they kind of break, similar to a Yan wood or a Yin wood person. If bamboo flexes too much, it shatters. So it's a little similarity that Yin Metal has. So Yin Metal, this is the princess, and it's not meant to be taken in a derogatory way. It is the youngest girl in the family structure within the Bagua and within this system. And there's a carefree responsibility that comes with being the youngest girl, because she doesn't really have to do chores. You know, the older brothers and sisters have paved the way for everything, and she just kind of gets to be doted on and enjoys life. So there are themes that come around responsibility, and whether it's completely avoiding responsibility or taking on too much responsibility, that is very much a life lesson for a princess person. They are hands down one of the best good looking of the entire 9-star key. A Yin Metal person they're generally very good looking, very well dressed. There is a grace and a poise that comes with a Yin Metal person. They have the same straight up and down posture that an Emperor or Yang Metal person would have, but it's softened a little bit, and the only word I can think of is really class and grace. They like clean lines. They prefer things to be pretty. There's a lot that has to do with image and specifically how things look aesthetically. Yin Metal people will go out of their way to make things look pretty, including themselves. So these are the men that will wear cufflinks and fancy shoes, and the women that are always kind of dressed up and just they put themselves out there in a way that they always look fantastic. They don't leave the house in sweatpants. You know, they prefer to look put together. It's just a Yin Metal thing. It's how they operate. And because of this aesthetic and image, they really, really enjoy having the best of the best. And whether that's education or furniture or a $25 bottle of balsamic vinegar, they will brag about and gravitate towards things of value, and they will openly talk about those things. So there's, money has a lot to do with metal. So metal people tend to talk about money, specifically Yin Metal, because they're like, do you like this? I paid $1,500 for this. And it's like, it's a thing, it's a value thing with Yin Metal, which is just really interesting. And they love it. They don't really do it to impress anybody else. I mean, they do, but it's part of what makes them who they are. A Yin Metal person, for them to like have a rest and relaxation type of vacation, they need the 5-star hotel. They need room service. They need to be doted on, like the spas and the massages. They do not get fed from going and staying with a friend and having like, they don't appreciate homemade food as much. I mean, they do. Some of them can be fantastic cooks and foodies and things like that. But when they want to be recharged, luxury is the name of the game. So it's very, very different from the way that a lot of the other elements show up. And it can look frivolous, but it's literally what they need and how they can best recharge in the world. So the princess, as you can imagine, is charming. They tend to be a bit of a social butterfly, and everybody loves them. They're elegant, they're put together, they're charismatic, and they have a fabulous quality that they can meet another person exactly where they are. They're so sensitive kinesthetically, just like the young metal counterpart, that they can interact with a person and learn, like they know who they need to be to make that person most comfortable. And it's one of their talents. They can mold themselves, you know, aluminum is bendable, so they can mold themselves into exactly what that person needs at that time, and they're fantastic listeners for this reason. And they're excellent communicators. Part of knowing what other people need is knowing what to say and how to say it. So they have a precision with words, and they tend to speak very, very clearly. And an interesting thing about Yin Metal is they're so charming and they know what the audience needs that it's not uncommon for them to be like super funny or comedians. Adam Sandler and Chelsea Handler are both Yin Metal, which is interesting. And because of the feeling energy kinesthetically thing, I have a great example of this. A friend of mine is a chiropractor, and we were sitting next to each other in a class, and break time comes. We hadn't really spoken much. It was the beginning of the day, and he looks at me and goes, "What did you do to your hand?" Meanwhile, I hadn't been moving my hand. He didn't touch my hand. He just knew, because he could feel in his own body that I had done something to my right hand. And he gave me an adjustment because he's amazing. But they can feel what other people need. They can use their bodies as a diagnostic machine when they're grounded. So just like the young metal counterpart, they tend to like to leave their body because they're a lot more sensitive than the emperor energy. You know, if that story, The Princess and the Pea, is very much like a yin metal person. They don't like clothes with tags. They don't like things that are uncomfortable. They are constantly managing the energy of a space, and because of that, they have a tendency to pop out of their body and try to learn astral travel. And you know, they really don't live in their body because it's kind of an uncomfortable place. But when they do, they can do amazing things, like feel you have something wrong with your hand by just sitting next to you in the class. So Yin Metal, because they are so sensitive, they can be passive aggressive. They do not like confrontation, and they will do anything to avoid confrontation. And they might even have a white lie or two, just to kind of diffuse a situation and walk away from it. They're so sensitive, even though they come across as kind of cold or like nothing can bother them. They're super, super sensitive, and they cannot handle someone yelling at them and feeling the energy of that. So they will go out of their way, make great lengths to avoid confrontation. They, like I said, they like beauty, so they can be chefs, you know, super foodies, connoisseurs, sommeliers, of course, gallery managers, anything to do with art and aesthetic, interior design, and they can also be great teachers and speakers because of this communication piece and public relations. That superpower of knowing what the other person needs to hear is very much very useful in a Yin Metal, in a public relations type of arena. So Yin Metal, more so than Yang Metal, because they're so sensitive, they feel everything and their senses are on hyperdrive just the same, but it's more so because they're Yin. You know, Yin is more internal, it's more sensitive, it's the feminine, and they're more receptive. So they're more likely to have issues with food intolerances, or they may choose to be vegan or vegetarian, you know, something that restricts. They have a thing about control, very similar to Yang Metal, and it's control specifically around deprivation. So Yin Metal, they will cut out food items. They're more likely to be intolerant just because they're sensitive. They're very much part of the minimalist movement, and that decorating style of like chrome and gray and sleek, clean lines is super, super Yin Metal. They're also very clean and tidy, and when out of balance can either be hoarders because they can't get it right the first time, so they just leave it and stuff piles up, or they can be on the opposite of the spectrum and have OCD and kind of anal tendencies. There was something else that I wanted to say and it just flew out of my mind. Okay, we were talking about food sensitivities and cleaning. All right, I'll remember if it's important. But, oh well, it is what it is. So the yin metal, they're coming out of a water year. So water naturally depletes the resources of metal, so it may have felt even more draining than it usually is. The water year is about the big dream. What do you want to accomplish over the next 9 years? So last year was probably very slow and kind of dreamy and not wanting to get out of bed in the morning. But now you've moved into a Yin Earth year, which is that divine feminine. It's like receptive soil. So this is the energy of planting and building a foundation and putting systems and things in place to support you for next year, which is when spring happens and things kind of go crazy, even if you don't plan them to. So a Yin Earth year, we have to prepare the soil for growth. So this is where metal really comes in handy because they love to declutter things. They love the minimalist stuff. They're great at throwing things away, even though one of their life lessons is letting go. If they're in balance, there's no room for error with a yin metal person, which is fantastic. So weeding the garden, if you will, declutter the soil so that you can grow what needs to grow. And make sure that you nurture and take good care of yourself. There will be more earthy tendencies in this year. Earth feeds metal as well. So there's a much more symbiotic relationship in this year than there was last year. But the social butterfly may want to turn inwards a little bit and spend more weekends watching Netflix or movies and having a snack, because that's just the energy of the year. Yin Earth is about home and family and building and kind of being in that, anything that has to do with home or conserving energy, if you will. This is also a great time for connections and networking, which is something that the princess does naturally because everybody likes them. But in particular, in a Yin Earth year, people come out of the woodwork and want to help you. It's a really cool energy that shows up. And they don't even have to, they won't even know you, and they'll go out of their way to help. This is the energy I was in when I was road tripping across the US and Canada. People were letting me and my dog into their house, and I was getting help from random guys at gas stations, filling tires and backing up my trailer. There was people everywhere to help me, and it was almost as if they were planted. So if you've noticed that, take advantage of people that want to help. Networking and connections is super, super important this year. And an awesome thing about this year, because Yin Earth is so receptive, learning a new skill or a new trade or any type of new information, when you're in a Yin Earth year, it gets into your system on a level that it really can't compare in any other year. Interestingly enough, my teacher learned this system in a Yin Earth year. And I started studying the system in a Yin Earth year. And I've only really been familiar with this whole thing for about 3 years. But the amount of information that I was able to grasp and retain and understand, like on a molecular level, happened during my Yin Earth year. So if there's, a class you wanted to take, if you want to learn a new language, some kind of skill, this is the year to do it, hands down. So things to be mindful of this year is don't overgive towards others. There is a tendency in the Yin Earth year, because it's the mom and the mom tends to overgive. Don't deplete your resources. The princess tends to be pretty good at this because they have an incredible energy around delegation. The princess will point out something that needs to be done because they're a perfectionist, and they also are right a lot of the time, but they will hire somebody else to do it. They're not the one to do it themselves. They go, no, that needs to be fixed, and then they'll call somebody or instruct somebody else to do it. So this will help any tendencies to overgive in this year. and don't push. Seeds grow naturally given the right environment, and pushing doesn't help. So that's just, remember that this is a slower year, and you just kind of have to go with the flow and give your plant what it needs. And playing the victim this year can come up too. In a Yin Earth year, we can feel insecure, self-doubt can creep in. So if you feel any of that talk in the background, just know that it's the energy of the year, and brush it off as best you can. And a way to combat that is just more self-care. Just pile that on. It never hurts anybody. And don't try to do everything yourself. Take advantage of the help that's being offered to you. Take advantage of opportunities. Don't discount what's coming in, because it's a really interesting energy that kind of gives you what you need without, you don't really have to do anything. So my princesses, in your mama bear year, I hope that this helped shed some light on who you are and how you operate in the world. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or send me a message or an email. And tomorrow we'll be diving into the young earth energy, which is the mountain, enjoying their young wood year. So have an awesome day, and I will see you then.